"We didn't order for your son." My sister slid a breadbasket to Mason while her kids cut into $100 steaks. My dad added, "You should have packed him something." "I'm Linda." And that was the moment I stopped being the family's cleanup crew. For years, I've covered Jill's messes, money, babysitting excuses, while our parents called it love. Last night, I stood up, canceled their orders, and put whatever was coming on my father's bill. They thought I'd stay quiet. They forgot one thing. I keep receipts, and I'm done paying for their chaos. Have you ever had to choose your child over family? Tell me in the comments. We were 5 minutes early. Mason's hand was warm in mine, his voice small but hopeful. "Can I get dessert?" he whispered, like dessert was permission to be a child. Inside the private room, Jill didn't stand up. Doug lifted his glass. Their boys clacked tablets on full volume. My mom's hug was distracted, a glance past me. My dad didn't rise. No one asked Mason anything. No one noticed the wrapped frame in my bag, their restored wedding photo I thought might soften the air. Mason pointed at chicken tenders on the menu, all shy smile and careful joy. I was flagging the waiter when Jill dragged the breadbasket toward him. "We didn't order for your son." She said it like a house rule I'd somehow forgotten. My dad didn't miss a beat. "You should have packed him something." There it was. The family religion. Jill's needs are urgent, mine are optional. Mason's eyes dipped, the kind of quiet flinch you feel more than see. My mom watched her water glass like it had the answers. I didn't argue. I waved the waiter over. "Cancel anything not fired," I said evenly. "And whatever's on the way, put it on my father's bill. It's his anniversary after all." Doug coughed. Jill blinked like I'd spoken a language she didn't understand. The waiter nodded. I added, "And my son will have the ribeye, medium rare, truffle mac, and a Coke." Mason's shoulders uncurled by a fraction. I handed him a breadstick like a baton. The room recalibrated around our table. Conversation frayed. Jill's kids whined about delays. Doug leaned in, whispering strategy. My parents traded glances. Should we scold her or wait? When the ribeye landed in front of Mason, my dad looked at the plate like it had insulted him. He didn't say thank you. He didn't look at me. I placed the framed photo on the table, my surprise gift for the big 4-0. "Happy anniversary," I said, soft and true. No one reached for it. As we stood to leave, I asked the waiter to set the frame out after we were gone. I bumped a dessert tray on the way out. A plate shattered, a clean, accidental period to a sentence I was done reading. I didn't apologize. The calls started that night. Jill. "What is your problem?" My dad. "You'll reimburse me." My mom. "You embarrassed us." I let them pile up like junk mail. In the morning, they came without warning. My parents, Jill, stomping up my steps as if my door were theirs. Mason saw them first and went quiet in that old, practiced way. I opened the door before the bell. My mom crossed the threshold like a queen returning from exile. Jill followed, arms folded. My dad set a manila envelope on the counter, tapped it like a gavel. "Invoice for the private room, $1,000. Since you bailed, pay your share." I didn't touch it. "Wait here." 2 minutes later, the side door opened. Uncle Gary and Aunt Denise stepped in like weather breaking. The room dropped a degree. I faced my family. No prelude. "I'm done supporting Jill," I said. "She's not my child. I've been paying half her rent for months. That ends today." Jill's voice rose. I didn't look at her. Denise spoke instead, steady, surgical. She listed what I'd carried. The money, the childcare, the midnight rescues, the excuses our parents minted as love. Then she asked, "When was the last time any of you helped Linda?" Silence. I opened the envelope. 1,000 even, I said. "Here's what I'll do. I'll give you 500, not out of obligation, out of pettiness, so I can sleep knowing you didn't get all of it." My dad's palm hit the counter. My mom's face folded. Jill bristled. "Get out," I said, opening the door and standing there, unblinking. Uncle Gary stood too. That was enough. They left, muttering, door slamming like old thunder. I locked it and stood in the new quiet, a hurt that didn't ask for permission anymore. I stood in that new quiet and let it hold. It didn't fix anything, but it finally stopped the noise I'd been trained to answer. The silence lasted maybe an hour. Then the phone started. First, my mom, voicemails with the same script, tilted just enough to sting. You made a scene. You disrespected your father. We were humiliated. Jill followed with a text wall. What is your problem? My dad, blunt. Reimburse me. I didn't reply. I stacked the messages like junk flyers and let them sit. Day 2, the drama needed an audience. Jill posted a vague Facebook essay about certain family members who think they're better than everyone. She thanked our real parents for raising her with love, not pride. The comments lit up. Sympathy. Hearts. The usual chorus of people who only know one side but clap anyway. I didn't take the bait. I didn't write a single line. My mom created a group text with the extended family, uncles, aunts, cousins. She announced, as if from a pulpit, that one daughter was cutting off family for no reason. No name needed. Everyone knew. A blue bubble appeared. Uncle Gary. Just one sentence. We know exactly what's going on. Jill left the chat 10 minutes later. Doug called next. I let it go to voicemail. He tried to sound neutral, like a mediator on a lunch break. Said he didn't agree with how everyone else was handling things. Hoped this wouldn't affect the kids. As if Mason was the problem. As if their $100 steaks and breadbasket charity hadn't told him everything he needed to know. I blocked his number. 10 days after the dinner, my dad walked into my office like he was returning a library book. He handed the receptionist an envelope and asked for me. In the lobby, he held up a printed photo. Someone had snapped it at the steakhouse. I'm standing, Mason looking up at me. Everyone else caught mid-gasp. My dad had circled himself in red marker and written, "This is who you embarrassed." He waited for the hit. I didn't take the photo. "You need to leave," I said. He did, without a word. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed and let the truth unravel, thread by thread. Not the rage, not even grief, just the weight of being the designated strong one while everyone else misnamed my silence as consent. I could have blown it all up. I didn't. I wrote instead. A letter, handwritten, 2 copies, one to my parents, one to Jill. No theatrics, no threats. I said I wanted peace. I said I wouldn't be guilted, blamed, or manipulated anymore. If we moved forward, it would be mutual, respectful, honest. I mailed the letters and blocked every number, every email, every account. Not revenge, order. A week passed. The quiet pretended to settle. Then my mom posted a photo. Her, Jill, and Jill's kids, all smiles and staged warmth. Caption, "Family is everything, even if some forget what that means." It didn't ignite me. It hollowed me out, like watching people I used to know cosplay a family that never existed. So I moved without shouting. I asked Mason's school for a brief meeting, just to check in. Nothing dramatic, no names, no history. The counselor nodded in that soft way people do when they've seen this before. "If anything changes, tell us," she said. Message received. I started gathering, slowly, carefully. I emailed my landlord for a record of every partial rent payment I'd made toward Jill and Doug's apartment. It came within the hour, 7 months, line by line. I printed it, highlighted each transfer, clipped a summary. I put it in a manila envelope addressed to Jill. No note, no commentary, just evidence. The responses multiplied, but not where they expected. In a private parenting group, I asked a simple anonymous question. Would you forgive your sister if she took money for months, lied, then humiliated you for setting a boundary? Hundreds of replies poured in, anger, empathy, versions of my story told by strangers with my same tired courage. Late that night, my phone buzzed again, an unfamiliar name. A woman said she'd worked with Jill at a digital marketing firm, claimed Jill had invented a false HR complaint to demote her after a minor disagreement. She lost her job 3 months later. I didn't want to believe it until a second ping arrived. A party photo. Jill, poolside, wine glass raised, in a designer dress. The timestamp aligned exactly with the weekend she told me Doug was in the ER and begged me for money. I'd sent $200 that day. I didn't reply to the woman. I saved everything. The next afternoon, I went looking for a stapler in the garage and instead found a childhood box. Dusty albums, crayon drawings, birthday cards. At the bottom, an envelope that didn't belong. Addressed to my dad. Dated 22 years ago. My mother's handwriting. I held it for a long time, feeling the paper throb like a small, kept secret. Then I slid a finger under the flap and began to read. The letter began tender. Sleep deprivation, sore shoulders. I'm trying. Then it turned. I didn't want another child. I was content with one. I don't think I'll ever bond with this new baby. I feel like I'm faking it. I'm too tired to try. She meant me. I sat on the garage floor with the summer dust in the light. Every birthday I'd downplayed. Every A I'd earned without celebration. Every rescue I'd run for Jill, while our mother called it love. It wasn't in my head. It was ink. It was dated. It had always been true. That night I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop. No monologue, no venom. I wrote one email, facts only. The money I'd paid, the lies told, the messages saved, the photo from the steakhouse, and at the end, a single image, the paragraph from that letter, the one where my mother said she wouldn't bond with me. No subject line, no signature, just the truth leaving my body. I hit send and blocked every number and address tied to them. Not revenge, containment. For 48 hours, quiet. I folded laundry. I answered Mason's questions about a science project. I slept like a person who had finally named the weather. Then came the knock. 2 women in plain clothes, badges at the door. Child Protective Services. One said gently, "We received a report." Anonymous, of course. Allegations of neglect. Long stretches alone, withdrawn behavior. I felt my pulse in my mouth, cold and pounding. "Come in," I said. They were professional, careful. They checked the fridge. They looked at the calendar pinned above the desk. They peeked into Mason's room. Books lined up like little soldiers, clean sheets, school art taped crooked by proud hands. They called the school the same day. The counselor said Mason was kind, quiet, helpful. The principal added a note for policy. Even unfounded reports leave a file. If a second call comes, automatic escalation. When the door shut behind them, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the wood grain until it stopped swimming. This wasn't drama anymore. This was a weapon, not a misunderstanding, a warning shot. I called Uncle Gary. I told him everything. He didn't curse. He didn't sigh. "That was the warning shot," he said. "You need to move." So I did. I pulled the receipts, the rent statements, the Venmo screenshots, the party photos, Jill poolside in the designer dress the weekend she swore Doug was in the ER and begged me for $200. I found a card from Mason's second birthday in Jill's handwriting. "Thanks for always being the stable one. I'd fall apart without you." I put it on top of the stack. War had been declared. I was done pretending it was weather. War doesn't start with shouting. It starts with folders. I labeled everything: rent, messages, photos, school. My lawyer skimmed the piles and nodded once. "We're sending cease and desist letters. Jill, your mother, your father, false reports, online smears, unpaid debt. Next move from them, we escalate." Her voice was calm the way a locked door is calm. The letters went out on a Tuesday. By Thursday, Doug slipped through a crack I hadn't sealed. A text buzzed from an unknown number. A bank transfer screenshot, $2,850. Exactly half of what I'd covered in rent. No note, then a second message. I told her to stop. "I've moved out. Do whatever you have to do." Doug had always been spineless, but even cowards know when a boat is sinking. I saved the screenshot and blocked him for good. Denise called 2 days later. "Ran into your mom at the grocery store," she said, voice steady. "She looked wrecked. Kept muttering you destroyed the family." Denise didn't sugarcoat it. I told her, "Linda didn't destroy anything. She stopped playing your game." She didn't like that. I could picture the baking aisle, my mother gripping a box of cake mix like it could argue for her. The stories began to find me. A cousin I barely speak to messaged, "Jill borrowed $600 and ghosted her." An aunt wrote that she drove 2 hours to get Jill after a blow-up with Doug and never got a thank you. Pull one thread and the whole sweater shows itself. I wasn't the only one. I was just the last one to say enough. Then the envelope came, thin but heavy, an attorney's letter from my parents. They were pursuing grandparent visitation rights for Mason. "You're denying access out of spite," it said, "damaging his emotional development." They were about to drag my child into court to pull me back into orbit. I called my lawyer. She didn't flinch. Arizona law is clear. They don't have grounds. She paused. This isn't legal. It's personal. They're using the court to scare you. The calm in her voice didn't soften the threat. It clarified it. This wasn't about seeing Mason. They had ignored him at dinner, handed him bread while their grandsons carved steaks. This was about control. So I moved fast and on paper. We filed a formal response with exhibits, screenshots, payment records, the anonymous CPS report marked unfounded, the photo of my dad's red circle and note, "This is who you embarrassed." I notified Mason's school and submitted a restricted individuals list, no pickups, no volunteering, no access. My parents and Jill included. I changed the locks. I updated my living will. Uncle Gary and Denise named guardians if anything ever happened to me. I gave them copies of every document, every login, every plan. If my family wanted a war of attrition, they'd be fighting a wall. Then I made one last call to a friend in social media moderation. "Can you trace the IP on an anonymous CPS tip?" I asked. "Not officially," she said, careful. "But let's just say it came from a very familiar neighborhood." I didn't need more. A truth doesn't require the whole sentence to be understood. The night before the court-stamped rejected on my parents' petition, I printed one final letter, 2 copies, simple and final. This is the last time you'll hear from me. Decades of chances, betrayals, lies, and now legal threats against my child. Contact me or Mason again, and I'll seek a restraining order. Show up and I call the police. Try to enter our lives and I make every detail public. We are done. I sealed the envelopes and for the first time in years, slept like the door was truly locked. Tomorrow would be the verdict on paper. After that, I would choose life. The court stamped rejected on their petition, but the real verdict happened at my kitchen table. Quiet, ordinary mine. I changed the locks, updated the will, and let the house relearn our names. Days started to sound like pencils and zipper bags, the scrape of Mason's chair, the small thunder of his feet when he remembered something funny and had to tell me now. I mailed my last letter and closed every door that had always swung one way. Not anger, air. Then I took Mason camping. No phones, no comments, no proof to gather, just a slow river, trees that minded their own business, and a sky generous enough to hold what I didn't say. He held a stick over the fire, marshmallow turning gold. "You seem happier," he said, like he'd been keeping score for both of us. I didn't correct him. He was right. People think freedom feels like fireworks. It doesn't. It feels like a seatbelt unclicked. It feels like hearing your own footsteps and realizing they're not chasing anyone. I won't pretend it was easy. There were moments I reached for my phone, muscle memory aiming for old storms. But peace is a practice. So is love. The kind that protects without apology. I kept the folders, yes. I also kept room in our calendar for movie nights and early bedtimes and mornings that didn't begin with fixing someone else. If you're standing at a door you've only ever been asked to hold open, let this be permission to close it. Choose the child who trusts your hands. Choose the woman who slept through the night. Have you ever drawn a line that saved you? Tell me below. And if this story helped, share and subscribe for more true stories of boundaries, healing, and starting over.